Welcome to yet again another episode of the Seamus Evans Show. Now, this podcast has only just started. I've only done probably 15 episodes. So in terms of podcasting, I am brand new. This is a little baby, just a little seed, about to spurt into a giant tree. So if you've followed along and listened to some of these episodes, thank you so much. Thank you so much for supporting. I wish you could like, subscribe, comment, etc., etc., etc. I know with podcasting, it takes a very long time to build up an audience. Consistency is the key. So here I am. Today, we are going to be talking about my Tourette syndrome and my tics and how I redirect them. So my keynote talk, Superpower, it's called, my keynote presentation, what I travel all over Australia for, delivering to primary schools all the way up to corporate conferences and corporate teams for team building and etc., etc. The crux of it is the ability that I developed to redirect my tics so they weren't noticeable. When I started my television career, I didn't want them to be seen on screen. So I had to do everything in my power to redirect them so they weren't noticed. That was a lot of trial and error. I put in so much effort on a day-to-day basis, and I really tried to control them because I made a decision. I'll never let my Tourette's control me. I'll always control my Tourette's. And that kind of transpired into my future, my journey, my life. I'm always in control. I'm in the driver's seat. I make all the decisions. For a very long time when I was in radio and even television, I thought to myself, I'm waiting for someone to tap me on the shoulder so I can have a great opportunity to work in a bigger, better job, right? But I kind of had to change that mindset and be like, no. I don't have to wait on anyone. I'm in control. I'm in the driver's seat. I get to control my future. And that mindset came from my Tourette's. Understanding, hey, I've got these tics. My brain sends messages to my body that are unwanted. They slip through the gate that everybody has, and I tic. I make these twitches. I make these movements, these sounds, but I don't want to do them. I want to control them. I'm in control of my body. So I spent a lot of time and effort understanding my brain, understanding my body, and understanding what the message is, what the pathway, the message from my brain to my body, the pathway, my mood, everything. So I'll try and sum it up. If this is the first episode you've ever seen, I talk a lot about Tourette's in my YouTube channel. Tourette's is a neurological condition made up of tics, both motor and vocal tics. It is technically classed as a syndrome. It's not a disease, it's not an illness, and it's not a disability. However, some people who have Tourette's are disabled by it. I myself am not disabled by it, but it can be disabling for many people who have it. I remember very early on, a person I knew said, it's a disease. And I'm like, nah, you die from diseases. It's not a disease. It's just a syndrome, right? I call it a condition. It's a neurological condition, and it's made up of tics, both motor and vocal tics. Now, you must have the combination of both motor and vocal in order to fit into the Tourette syndrome category. There are other conditions that are just motor tics and other conditions that are just vocal tics, like I think it's called excessive tic syndrome or something, which my brother has actually. But I have Tourette's because I have both motor and vocal and many of them. Now, the best way to explain what it is, everybody's brain, just to self-regulate and to stay alive, it sends messages to the body, and these are unwanted messages from the brain to the body just to stay alive. It's like sending a pulse, okay? And everybody's brain has a gate to stop these unwanted signals from firing through. People with Tourette's have a weak gate. So those signals fire through. They slip through the cracks. They slip through the gate because the gate isn't locked, if that makes sense. It's a very simple way of trying to explain something extremely complex. So the signals fire through and the message is sent from the brain to the body and the body responds. Done. Now, you can do something called suppressing. Now, that is just stopping. It's not doing it. So the same way to understand it, is like blinking. Your brain sends a message to your eyelids to blink because your eyes need moisture. You can stop yourself from blinking, okay? That's stopping the action between the mind to the body. The message, you are actively stopping it. That's the same with tics. We can suppress, we can stop. However, the trade-off with suppressing is that you end up actually ticking more excessively later when you stop suppressing because there's a giant buildup. It's like the same as if you stop yourself from blinking. The longer you go, the harder it gets and the more frustrating it gets, and you end up over blinking, like overemphasizing the blinking because there's such a buildup of dryness, right? Or a lack of moisture in your eyes, so you overdo it. It's the same thing with tics. If I stop myself from ticking over 5 to 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 minutes, maybe even hours, when I finally do it, it's like overdoing it. Do too much of it. I do it in excess because I'm making up for all of that frustrating time that I didn't tick. It's the same as not scratching an itch. The longer you go without scratching it, the moment you stop and you scratch, it's like a dog dragging its bum against the floor, like, oh, yeah. Same kind of feeling, okay? So there is a guy in Canada who's actually a surgeon, and he's got Tourette's. He's a surgeon, a brain surgeon, I believe. And the way he does it is he just suppresses. He'll suppress for hours at a time, and then after the surgery, he'll completely let it out. There are many people who have Tourette's who just are really good at suppressing and accept the fact that when you suppress, it comes out worse, and they choose when it comes out worse, okay? That is the first step towards controlling your Tourette's. The first step is suppressing. Keep in mind, the longer you suppress, the more you let out later. So what I did, learning how to redirect them, it turns out this is actually a special technique that I didn't know about. I had to teach it to myself. It's called CBIT, Cognitive Behavioral Intervention Therapy. I didn't know that was a thing. I just had to learn it. So the best way to explain it, you catch the message from the brain to the body, and then instead of suppressing, you just try a new way of doing it. So let's pull it apart, deconstruct it like a burger, okay? A deconstructed burger at a hipster cafe. Pull the buns off, pull the meat patty off, pull the sauce to the side, the salad, whatever. You got it all laid out there. Okay, my brain, let's just use my shoulder tic as an example. My shoulder likes to tick like that, okay? That's one of the messages. So let's say my brain sends the message to my shoulder. So instead of ticking like normally, maybe I'll roll it. So I'll catch it. I go, oh, let's suppress the feeling. And I wonder if I roll it, that'll satisfy the feeling. That didn't satisfy it. Well, let's roll the other direction. Ooh, when I moved upwards in an upwards angle, that satisfied it. Okay, so what if every time I get that message, I'll stick my shoulders back like that, as if I'm stretching them, and I'll just roll them forward. And then if that satisfies that, I'll try and do that action every single time my brain sends the message to my body to do that ticking movement. I will stop, I'll catch it, I'll roll my shoulders back, then I'll roll them forward. And if that works, great. If not, I'll roll them backwards. Or I'll move my arms sideways. I'll move them up as if I'm stretching. I'll do as many different variety of movements as I can to make sure I satisfy that message that my brain is sending to my body. Now, if you do this every day, all day, with one tick, so just say I do that one tick 200 times a day, over 3 months, that's 18,000 different versions of that tick that I do. By that 3-month period, that tick will change. What happens, it's almost like the tick is sticky. It's like the tick is sticky. And so if you throw it on something, it'll stick. And then you pull it off something and throw it to something else, it's going to stick to that, okay? Or if you throw it at the top of the wall, it's going to roll down and stick the whole way down. I know that's a weird analogy, but stay with me here. So it'll stick to different movements. So if I start rolling, and just say I replace that tick with just a rolling of my shoulders, If I did that consistently over months at a time, the tic will change from a shrug to a roll, or it'll change to a head movement, or it'll change to a back wriggle, or it'll even change to going down my leg. By sticky, I mean it constantly moves given the messages and the movements that your brain sends and your body reacts to. This is quite a complex and quite possibly a confusing explanation. And you might be listening to this or watching this and thinking, I don't know what he's talking about. And yeah, if you don't have Tourette's, it's probably going to be really difficult. Let's try another way to explain it. Just say you have been to the beach and you've got sand in your shirt and it's really annoying and you keep wriggling your back until the sand gets released. So imagine that grain of sand is a tic. So you wriggle around in your shirt a variety of different ways until you get that sand out. But the sand from point A to point B, from where it's located to its exit, has to travel down like 10 or 15 different pathways, okay? So that's the same if we look at the message from the brain to the body as that grain of sand in your shirt. Your brain sends a message to the body to tic. But if you move your body in a variety of different ways, eventually the sand will get out and that message will get received and the feeling and the urge will get satisfied, but it'll go through a different series of paths. And in that path, you will create a new tic. I know it sounds maybe complicated, so I'll try and explain it in another way. Tics are contagious, not if you don't have Tourette's. If you don't have Tourette's and I tic in front of you, you're not going to start ticking. But if you do have Tourette's and I start ticking in a way that you don't tic, by the end of our time together, you'll start mimicking my tics. Your tic, my tic would be contagious to you. I know, right? How weird is that? When I've gone to Tourette syndrome camps here in Australia, there's like 100 kids with Tourette's, and they'll all get the same tic, whether it's a verbal tic or whether it's a physical tic or whether it's a motor tic, whatever it is, right? They'll all have it. So so it's a weekend long, and at the beginning of the weekend, everyone's just running around and all crazy and meeting each other and having fun. By the end of the tic, they've all got the same tic. They're contagious if you have Tourette's. It's also falling into the echopraxia version. So echopraxia, echolalia is like verbal mimicking, and echopraxia is mimicking physically. And a lot of the people who have Tourette's also have echopraxia, which is a version of Tourette's, just like palalalia, just like coprolalia, copropraxia, echolalia, echopraxia. I mean, these are all Latin names, and they're it's pretty full on. Okay, that's like another level. Let's just go down a different path. They're contagious, and people copy. Which means if they're contagious, if you're seeing another tic, then I wonder if you can plant a tic in your own mind. And this is the game that I would be playing. So when I was younger, experimenting with different tics and my movements, I'd go, well, what if I want that tic that's my shoulder movement or my eye flicker or my head movement, my head nod that's too distracting to everybody and catches too much attention. I wonder if I can turn that into a toe wiggle. So then I would plant the seed in my mind, toe wiggle. When I tic with my head going back as if I'm saying hello to someone or flicking my fringe out of my eyes, I'll wiggle my toe instead. Now, that doesn't satisfy the urge. That's not a replacement. It's kind of like going to McDonald's because you want a cheeseburger and end up getting a fillet of fish. You're still at Macca's, but it doesn't satisfy the urge. So what I would do is I would make sure every time I did the head movement, I would follow up with a toe wriggle. Or I would sit there with no tics and I would wriggle my toe. And I'd tell my brain, channel all of the ticking into my toe. Channel all of the ticking into my toe. And I would sit there wiggling my toe a million times. Now, over a long period of time, by that I mean days, weeks, months, constantly doing this every chance I got, whether I was sitting in class, whether I was sitting at home, falling asleep, whatever, I would actively, consciously channel my tics into my toe. What that did over a period of time is I developed a toe tic. Now, whether it took the head movement away or it developed a new tic is irrelevant. I consciously, with my brain, created a new tic. Once I developed that and that was made aware, and I was like, hang on a second, I actually have the control to determine what tics I do and what tics I don't. Once I unlocked that way of thinking, everything changed. Because I was then in the driver's seat. I was in control. Yes, my brain still sent messages to my body and I still ticked. Then I would actively go, okay, that's a tic I made. Well, what can I do instead? And I just went through, and you need to understand, this is years and years and years of experimenting, years of trial and error, years of individual different tics and management. Also, it's a management. So once I redirected one tic, that wasn't it forever. Sometimes you've got to do it again. To this day, I only redirect a tic that is either uncomfortable, as in it hurts me, or it's debilitating socially or debilitating in my day-to-day movements. So I used to have one where I'd open my mouth excessively and then squeeze my stomach and smack my teeth together. And it was like hitting a golf ball. It had to be at that sweet spot, like it just had to be right. And the amount of times that movement wasn't right, so it would debilitate me. I would stop speaking to someone in the middle of a conversation. I couldn't sit. It sucked. I hated it. So I focused and I redirected that one tic to a slight movement of my lip. That took about a month. It takes a long time. And that was only doing one. So if you're 15 and you've got 20 different tics, redirecting all of them at once is going to be a nightmare. If you're watching this and you have tics, I would strongly recommend focusing on one. If you were to write down all of your tics in a priority of 1 to 10, of which one's the worst, 10 being the worst, start with that one, okay? The most frustrating or painful tic, that's the one you start redirecting. And only focus on that one. Every time you get that urge, every time your brain sends a message to your body, I want you to try and catch it. Suppress it for about 30 seconds. And in that 30 seconds, I want you to trial different movements around that body part where the brain is sending the message to the body. And experiment with like 5 movements. So let's say, for example, your tic is making your hand into a fist. Okay, that's the tic. You go, okay, my brain is sending the message to my hand to do the fist movement. Let's not do the fist movement. Let's instead do the opposite and extend and flex my hand. That's one movement. Let's wriggle my fingers. That's second movement. Let's, instead of balling into a fist, but kind of scrunching your hands like a claw, making a claw. Okay, that's the third movement. Let's wave your hand like this, going up and down, up and down. Okay, that's a fourth movement. And now, why don't we touch our thumb with our pinky, and then our ring finger, and then our middle finger, and then our index finger, and then backwards. Then let the tic out. So you've now trialed 5 different movements for a tic. If you try and do that, if you have that fist tic every single day, 200 times a day, and you do those 5 variants and you start getting creative with more variants, maybe it's a clap, maybe it's putting your thumbs out and your fingers all the way, like whatever it is, treat it like Play-Doh. When you get Play-Doh, you flatten it out, you scrunch it together, you throw it against the wall, you pull it apart, you roll it up, you experiment with Play-Doh, okay? Play-Doh doesn't have a shape. You create the shape. So I want you to treat your tics the same way. Trial as many different versions. Create your own movements. Start in that body part and explore the different movements, okay? And each time you need to do that, just do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. Over 3 months. It will get difficult. It will get frustrating. The good news is that tic is always going to be there. So you can, if you forget it once or if you just stop doing it for a day, it's okay because you can pick up the next day. You can constantly try again because that tic ain't going away. All right. That is the first step I would suggest on learning how to redirect your tics. Remember, you have the power. Your brain is in control. So if you get in control of your brain, you're in the driver's seat. Okay? You are the author of your own narrative. You are in control. You are writing your own story. All right? You are in the driver's seat. You get to determine where you go, where the direction is, and which way you are turning, how fast you're going, or how slow you're going. Make sure that you really shift into that mindset that you're the one in control. Those tics are not in control of you. You are in control of them. When I was first diagnosed, the psychiatrist told me that I can't turn the tics off, but I can turn them down as if it's a volume button. So you can turn all the way down to 1 or all the way up to 11. So you navigate, you control the volume of these tics. That's the really important part of starting the journey of redirecting your tics. You must understand that you're the one who's in control. You're the one sitting in the cockpit. You're the one sitting at the desk in charge of all the buttons, okay? When you have Tourette's, it feels like someone else is pressing those buttons, but they're not. It's you. You have to consciously jump into that seat and start taking over the button pressing. And that takes a while. That takes a while, but that's the very first step. Then you gain more confidence when you kind of see that you've controlled it. Then you start manipulating the tics. There are so many people that I've met over the years that don't start that journey, probably because they're insecure and they're annoyed and they're frustrated and they hate the fact they have Tourette's. And so they kind of put their blinders on, they put their head in the sand, and they just don't want to look at anyone who notices their tics. This is a very sad part and a reality to living with Tourette's because it is very embarrassing for some people. For many people, it is embarrassing, it is annoying, and they don't like it. So if they're in that mindset, it's very hard to start taking control. It's almost like ignoring them, hoping they'll go away, sweeping them under the rug. They ain't going away. You've got to take over. You have to roll up the sleeves and you've got to get in the driver's seat, man, because they ain't going away. And they're not. They will then start controlling you. They will then start taking a form of their own. It almost feels like they've got their own mind because it's strange. You'll actually tic more if you think people are looking at you. It's like a weird, oh man, tics are weird, okay, and hard to explain. But sometimes it's like they have a mind of their own, hence the copying tic. You see someone do a movement and then you start mimicking, going, what the hell? I didn't do that. What's happening? So it is very strange. You need, the earlier you go through this acceptance journey of going, okay, I do have Tourette's and I can do something about it, that the moment you start doing that, the moment you're on the journey, and then it gets easier. But if you don't do it, they will take control. They will completely override your ability to stop them, to redirect them. You can't allow that. You cannot do it. You must accept that you've got Tourette's. You've got these tics. This is what's happening to your body, and it's never going away. The earlier you can actually accept that reality, then you can go down this journey of learning how to redirect them and disguise them into your body language so you actually can be in society, be in the community, and not feel embarrassed by it. And it takes a long time for people to notice. I've been doing jiu-jitsu now for 5 months. Only Monday, coach noticed. He said, "Oh, have you got a twitch? Well, have you hurt your nerve or something?" And it took him 5 months to notice. So many people that I meet, they're like, "Oh, I don't even realize you've got Tourette's. I don't even notice it. I've never seen them." That's because I've spent 35 years learning how to redirect them, learning how to minimize them, learning how to consciously let them out when people aren't looking. Like there's so many different tricks that you can do with Tourette's. But you've got to accept the fact that you've got them first. That's really, really important. So if you have liked this video, if you've learned something, even if you've got any questions, I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. Write a comment, ask a question. Let me know if this has helped. Let me know if you disagree with anything I said. I'd love to hear your point of view. Like and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. See ya.